Hey gang, it's Mitchell Anthony, Chief Investment Officer for Mitchell Anthony Capital Management. I'm here today with my senior analyst, Kyle Aaron, and we want to welcome you to another episode of Beat the Bogey. We've got a great show planned for you today. We're going to talk about an exciting subject called It's All About Experiences. So stay tuned in. We'll be right back with an exciting episode.
Hello world, wake me up to another good morning, time to go. Got that smile upon my face, 'cause there's excitement in the chase, this I know.
Okay, so we're back, and we're going to talk today about something that's, I think, interesting to almost all investors. Tuning into what's driving our economy, because we know the U.S. economy drives our financial markets. And if we can tune into what's driving the economy, we'll have kind of some leading information about where our markets might be going. One of the things we've learned in managing money over the years is that every good economic cycle tends to have consumption themes that drive it. Themes of very definite, prevalent consumptions that prevail throughout a cycle. We had it in the 80s with defense and aerospace. We had it in the 90s with the advent of the computer and networking devices. We had it in the 2000s with the dot-com era and the build-out of all the infrastructure for the internet, laying cable across the Atlantic and laying broadband cable and just all the equipment and technology that was required to make the internet work. That drove the cycle. In the 90s and early part of the 2000s. And then the next cycle that began in 2002 was all about real estate. Everybody wanted to own a home. They wanted to own a second home. They wanted to own a third home. They wanted to own a bigger home. And if you didn't have money, no problem. As long as you had a heartbeat, you could get a loan and you could buy property. And you could fill it up with all kinds of home furnishings. And that was the strongest consumption theme I think we've ever had driving our economy. That and what happened in the 80s with Ronald Reagan trying to outspend the Soviet Union and win the Cold War, and all the billions and billions of dollars he spent on weapons to win that Cold War. That was a great consumption theme too. So now here we are in 2020 with an economy that's been on a pace of very slow and modest growth, gosh, for 8 years now. And people scratch their head and they're saying, what's driving our economy? Is there any really prevailing consumption theme driving our economy? And we've had to look around long and hard to find something, because there hasn't been anything near as tangible as what we had in the last cycle, which was, outrageous spending on real estate, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. It hasn't seemed to be anything quite as big and obvious as housing and all the things that go into housing and that kind of spending. It's been a little more nuanced, we think, in this cycle. There's a few kind of maybe more obvious things. Digital devices. Everybody's got their phones strapped to them at all times of the day. So there's been certainly a consumption trend around digital devices.
Owning a phone, owning an iPhone, owning some sort of digital device, whether it's the doctor in his office who's got the little electronic gadget where he can, look at all your history, where he can see your x-rays, he can see MRIs, he can send a script to your pharmacy. He's got a digital device. Your dentist has got a digital device.
Yeah, you're checking out at the Apple Store, and they don't ring you up back at the register. They've got their own little digital device that kind of does everything on the fly.
So it's prevalent in the consumer hand and in the hand of businessmen. So digital devices has been a bit of a theme, but these digital devices are nothing like buying a $500,000 home with leverage, are they?
Right. Not quite the same quantity of consumption there in monetary terms.
There's been a little bit more of consumption behind it, though, in that the build-out of all of the technology that's in the cloud to make that happen, and companies building out their infrastructure so you can compute on the cloud rather than on your PC at home.
Yeah, the cloud kind of networking build out, I think, has been a big theme, especially for businesses. So it's it's easier to kind of do business anywhere. As much as you might be carrying your phone around, now you can do business on your phone through the cloud and do business anywhere. So
Right.
that's been a big kind of development. One of the other things that we've noticed that's been interesting and increasing of late is subscription-based services and kind of on-demand services. These are subscriptions like Netflix and things like that have been replacing traditional consumption of cable TV and things. On-demand services like an Uber or an Uber Eats, and kind of changing our ability to kind of get things on demand. And in some cases, just using Uber rather than getting a car. Why commit to this car when you can just call your Uber whenever you need something? So that's been interesting.
Which has evolved into what we're here to talk about today, which is this theme about it's all about experiences.
That's exactly right.
And it kind of began with the millennials, didn't it? Who, for whatever reason, got priced out of the housing market, couldn't really afford to buy a home, and couldn't really afford to buy big, expensive items because they're not the most ambitious bunch who wants to go out and earn a lot of money. And they were kind of raised in an environment of entitlement where they were given a lot of things and they weren't maybe motivated to be capitalists who were going to think about tomorrow and start investing their time and energy in owning homes and cars and things for their family. They were thinking more about the present day, weren't they?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. Due in part to kind of how they were raised, like you're saying, and also a lot of them lived through seeing their parents experience the financial crash in 2008, and saw their parents who had maybe spent their whole lives saving and trying to build up this wealth and getting a house and things, and that all kind of falling apart. So trying to instead, rather than think about this kind of long-term financial success, settling down, owning a house, it's more about living in the moment, enjoying experiences, rather than things.
Yeah, that's clearly what we've noticed about the millennials is they're all about living in the moment. They're all about experiencing things rather than owning things. They haven't wanted to have the big houses, the big cars. They've opted for apartment living. So they have mobility. It's been more affordable. It allows them to be close to the experiences they want to have. They love these little villages that have become popular in the middle of a rural area. All of a sudden, a village has spurted up and full of apartments and full of activities and experiences for them.
Right.
And that's created a whole theme in of itself, in that we've seen consumption of apartments that began a decade ago. When the millennials couldn't afford homes, the builders realized this and quickly started building apartments in replacement of single-family homes, and we've just seen a boom in construction of apartments, haven't we?
Yeah, that's been interesting. It's for the reasons that we talked about in terms of either not wanting this kind of real estate asset commitment like their parents had in buying a house, or not being able to because maybe they have some student loan debt that they couldn't qualify to buy a house. And also they just didn't really want that commitment. They wanted to be able to change jobs. Millennials these days are changing jobs every 3 years, maybe faster than any other generation. And so they don't want to be tied down to these big financial assets. And so there's been a big boon for apartment builders.
They're more interested in having a job that they like than having a job that pays great money. And
Totally.
so they will sacrifice money to have something that they enjoy doing, or that isn't maybe as necessarily as hard or dirty or messy or hairy. They don't want hairy jobs. They don't want dirty jobs. They want clean jobs. If it's fun, that's a bigger plus. And if it doesn't lead to great money, well, that seems to have been okay too, right?
Yeah, it's almost like, foosball tables are the new 401k. They want it to be a fun work environment that they enjoy going to, rather than something that maybe they don't enjoy quite so much, but that really provides a firm financial foundation for them. It's been a preference shift.
And this has affected the economy in that, the baby boomer or the millennials are the biggest part of our population now. And if we define them by age, I guess it's kind of people age 25 to age 45. Would that be correct to say?
I think we top out right around 40, maybe a little bit older than that.
Okay.
But yeah, and so the largest kind of subset too of that is skewed a little bit older, I believe, that kind of 30 plus range of the millennials.
Yeah, the biggest part of the millennial population lies in the 30 to 40 range, and there's a kind of a much smaller percentage of 30 and under millennials, and who are maybe more extreme than the older ones. In fact, the older ones now are actually finally starting to nest a little bit. The millennials who are 40-ish and pushing onward are finally starting to say, okay, we've had a lot of experiences, we've had this apartment living, but we do want to have kids and a family, and so some of those people are starting to nest a little, and it is bringing up the demand for housing just a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of wrinkle in the story here, where some of the millennials have now gotten older, and where they were focused maybe on experiences or maybe job or different jobs as they found the most fun ones. Now they've maybe found a mate. They're thinking about settling down, and so they might be looking at this house asset, but still in a lot of cases they've got too much debt from school. They're still not positioned, especially with the big run-up in prices of houses over the last decade. They still really can't buy houses in most cases.
Yeah, this is something worth noting, is the fact that millennials have taken on substantially more debt than any other generation took on for education, and that we know the cost of tuition at colleges and universities across America has been going up at a double-digit rate for 40 years. And so the cost of a college degree is 10 times what it used to be, 40 years ago.
Right.
And so as a result, they have a lot of debt, and it's affecting their lifestyle. It's affecting their ability to buy homes and cars and hard items, and keeping them more focused on the mode of living in the moment.
Right.
So let's talk about what's happening with this game of living in the moment, and who's benefiting from what the millennials are doing, because it is benefiting some people. It's hurting others. It hasn't been helping housing buyers and the manufacturers of Rolexes and
Right.
hard items, but it has been helping industries who are all about experiences. And let's talk a little bit about the experiences that have been benefiting. And let's also note that this theme of experiences has kind of spread too. All of a sudden, Generation Xers who were 40 to 50, 5 or more, are starting to think, well, that experience idea isn't so bad either. And even the baby boomers now are all of a sudden thinking about, well, we have our home, we have our car, but we haven't been to Europe yet. We haven't been to the south of France. We haven't, seen the turtles in Galapagos. And
Yeah, you're totally right. As much as the millennials might be kind of leading the way with experience spending, on the other hand, you have an older generation now that over the past 10 years has seen their wealth grow in many cases, and in addition to that has kind of been there, done that with the cars and the houses and things, and they're at the point in life where they say, yeah, what else do we need to do? And it's experiences. It's not, there's no more to buy, watch-wise or house-wise or whatever.
Family trips. I mean, the baby boomers are enjoying taking their children, their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren to Hawaii for a week, spending $50,000 on this great family vacation. And it's a trip to remember, or a trip to Costa Rica, or whatever, surfing. These are things that they can talk about forever, and they seem to prefer having these experience memories over having a nice car sitting in the driveway or a Rolex watch on their wrist.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And there's been, worth noting, there's scientific studies that have taken place that really point to a greater level of happiness being derived from an experience. Where with a watch, you're kind of happy until your buddy gets the newer model, but this experience, it's unique to you. All the time leading up to this vacation that you take and looking at the photos afterwards, there's a lasting happiness that you get out of this. And kind of once you experience that experience, it sticks with you as the thing you want to do.
This isn't just our opinion either. There's actually some hard facts behind this. If you look at statistics on consumer spending, haven't we found that over the last few decades that the share of consumer spending on experiences and events has increased by over 70%?
That's right.
relative to total U.S. consumption.
Yep, we've seen that. That's been interesting, and even over the last few years, the growth in experience-related spending has been trending at about 6% year over year, where goods spending, tangible hard goods spending, has been trending at about 1.5% growth year over year. So multiples higher on experiences.
That's huge. So who's benefit? Who's riding the train and who's not in this experience-based economy?
Right.
Who are the companies who are benefiting from this?
Yeah, so it's interesting to kind of think about. So the framework that I was using was, we've got kind of two models here. There's the people that are the businesses that already kind of operate in the experience space. These are things like cruise lines, amusement parks, movie theaters, restaurants. These are experiences that are already kind of situated well to benefit from this consumption trend. But then you've got other kind of things that wouldn't ordinarily come to mind as places to have an experience, like a bank or like a Starbucks where you go to get a coffee. And these businesses have noted this trend and changed or adapted their business model to offer more of an experience with the product that they're selling to entice consumers to come in.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the whole world is adapting and making the experience better, and even going into your local Walmart or Target now has become a better experience, as they have to compete with the likes of Amazon, who is allowing people to buy things over the internet easily. They're trying to lure people into the store by making the purchase experience better, giving you coffee and drinks while you wait, and having people there to wait on you hand in hand. Going into Nordstrom's is quite a personalized experience today, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe they've just launched a full bar in a lot of the Nordstrom's and Saks and places, not only to encourage, I mean, you've imbibed a bit, you're going to probably buy more stuff, but it's more of an experience. You go with your friends, you have a drink, you get some shoes, you spend the afternoon. It's not just go in, grab a t-shirt, and take off.
So what do we know? We know people are going to sporting events a whole lot more, and the pricing power of sporting events is way up. I went to a Laker game the other night took my family. Oh my goodness. Even to sit up in the rafters was like $300 a ticket. And if you wanted, something down close, it was $1,500 a seat to go to a Laker game with just an average seat.
Right.
So sporting events, oh my gosh, the pricing power. Tried to go to watch the 49ers play Green Bay last weekend in the playoffs, and oh my goodness, $500 to $1,000 for a ticket to watch that game up in the nosebleed section. So people have really bid up the prices of these experiences, and there's and wherever there's pricing power, there's money to be made. Theme parks. What does Disneyland get for a visit to the park now?
Right.
$120?
Yeah, so they get about 120. I mean, it varies depending on crowd size for the day, but yeah, 120 to 150. One of the things that's kind of interesting there, I think, is like you talked about, going to a sporting event or a concert. You think about the price you pay and the entertainment that you get. As much as people kind of talk about Disneyland being really expensive, right? You can go for the whole day for $120. You look at, that's the cost of the nosebleed section at like an off-team sports game.
Right, to see the Clippers play, you might be able to get a ticket for $200 in the rafters,
so
or $150, right.
Just kind of wild as a testament to how much demand there is for sporting events and concerts and things
Live
of that
entertainment.
nature.
I mean, was in New York not long ago, wanted to see a Broadway show, and oh my gosh, Hamilton, $400 for a ticket to see Hamilton.
Right.
And that's not even a great seat.
If you can get it, yeah.
And so, Broadway events, wow, pricing power. Live stage events, pricing power. So those companies are benefiting. Then how about the casino world? Is the casino world benefiting from this theme of experiences? Certainly hotels are, because we know people are traveling more, and so hotels are benefiting. And we know airlines are. Travel on the airlines is up. How about Las Vegas as a destination? Is this an experience that people want?
Yeah, I think Las Vegas probably generally has seen kind of an increase in consumers going there because they have so much to offer. The actual casino part, I'm not sure if that's really seeing an increase in demand. There's lots of stuff that goes into what causes somebody to gamble. We've had wealth increasing, which might have caused that to go up, but we also see a big boom usually in hard times when, like in the crash, people go and they try to gamble. So I'm not totally sure if the casinos, but you look at that in terms of kind of a total offering, like you invest in a Wynn or something, for example. There's definitely people going to these hotels, seeing the shows they offer, maybe gambling a bit.
Going to the clubs, oh my goodness, going to a club in Las Vegas, it's $100 to walk in the door, let alone, buy a bottle of champagne or something.
Right.
So the clubs, that's more of an experience than sitting at the blackjack table. I don't think the millennials really enjoy gambling, and they don't enjoy sitting at a blackjack table. And so I think traditional gambling is not benefiting. And so the casinos have been having to re-innovate and create more dining experiences, more club experiences, more live entertainment. And they're still trying to push the gambling because that's their high margin profits. But unfortunately, it's not really fitting in really well with what millennials want and can afford.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And like you've seen, all these celebrity chefs that are out in Vegas, right? All the restaurant scene there is
Wolfgang Puck.
Dynamic. Yeah. So there's focuses on other offerings besides the gambling, I think, have been happening. But overall, the hotels that exist there understand what's happening and are adapting.
So who's riding the train? Well, we know the airlines are making more money than they ever have. They're finally managing their business well. They've got some pricing power there. They're charging you, nickel and diming you for everything, and the fares are up, and capacity is being managed relatively well. Delta Airlines reported some great earnings not too long ago. So we know the airlines have seen some benefit from this theme. They're a risky group, though, because they're highly cyclical, but for those who are courageous, there's money to be made in airlines here. There's also money to be made in hotels, but these are not American superstar companies like we like to invest in.
Right.
Hotels, they kind of come and go. I mean, we've seen, Hilton and Marriott and all of these star players, fall into extreme distress whenever the economy crashes and burns. But they're making money. We know the theme parks seem to be one of the best way to play it. We know the cruise lines like Royal Caribbean, we're heavily invested there. Great way to play the theme. We know anybody who's tied to sports and sporting events is making money. How about restaurants? Is there some money to be made in restaurants? Cheesecake's Factory is certainly an American superstar name that's been out there, but is it timely, and does it align with what this experience theme is all about and what the millennials want when they go to a restaurant?
Right. Yeah. It's we do talk broadly about kind of dining as an experience being a theme, but yeah, I think what you find is you've got to dig in a little bit further, and unfortunately, a lot of the investable stuff, like these big traditional restaurant groups that have cheesecake, they're really not the destination, right? People want a unique dining experience. They want to go to a small restaurant chain or that maybe is owned by a private restaurant group that has 3 or 4 locations. Going to just kind of a standard 1,000 location Cheesecake Factory doesn't seem to fit the bill in terms of seeking a dining experience anymore. So they've seen a traffic outflow. I think that's not really the place you'd want to be if you were trying to play dining.
Right, I think you're right, and I think one of the things to be aware of with this theme is kind of brand names in anything are kind of out. Like the millennials are not in love with brands. They want uniqueness and character, whether it's the restaurant they go to or the car they drive. You've seen some of the cars the millennials drive, these boxy looking cars and strange things, and they want character over kind of brand quality. So that's been an interesting thing to pay attention to. This theme of it being all about experiences has not been an easily investable theme, but we definitely know there are some people riding the train. We know that Disney is benefiting it. We know Netflix is benefiting from it. We know the cruise lines are benefiting from it. We know airlines and hotels are benefiting from it. Maybe some of the Las Vegas players are benefiting from it. Did I miss anything? The Starbucks of the world are probably benefiting from the experience that they've created there, and the fact that these millennials like to go to the Starbucks and get a what are some of the crazy drinks that they offer at Starbucks to draw people in now?
Yeah, I think it's worth noting. It's not just about going to get a coffee anymore, this product. You can go in, so Starbucks has this great kind of lounge feel where you want to hang out with your friends, and they have drinks. Gosh, I think one of them was like the unicorn frappuccino or something. These are like
frappuccino.
These colorful, you see that when they get released, they're limited time releases, and so all of a sudden an Instagram feed is full of these wild rainbow looking drinks that are just so fun and shareable, and part of the experience. That, yeah, this has really driven a lot of traffic to Starbucks, where it's not just about, hey, I'm going to get a cup of coffee.
Right. How about the banks? The banks are trying to enter into this game a little bit. Chase with their Sapphire card, and Capital One has these cafes. Are those kind of investable ideas?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, so now we're getting a little bit more into some of these, like with Starbucks and stuff, kind of traditional things that you wouldn't think of as traditionally being experiences being turned into experiences to drive traffic. Starbucks with the innovative kind of lounge feel and crazy drinks. As you mentioned, like Capital One has bank branches where you can go in and get coffee and do yoga. And it's the Capital One Cafe, so it's more about just kind of banking. So there might be some investability here in kind of non-traditional experience names where they're doing these unique things. Chase with their Sapphire card tied all the benefits to spending on experiences, like you get extra points for restaurants and travel. So it's totally aligned with the way that people are spending, and they've actually seen a huge outflow of American Express card holders coming and signing up for this Chase card. So they've been doing JP Morgan Chase, a great job in tailoring their card services to what people want. So yeah, there's some other interesting kind of investable areas outside of the traditional experience group, I think.
So this theme of it being all about experiences, it's not new. It didn't just happen over the last few years. It's been going on for maybe almost a decade, right? Is there reason to believe that we're in the 8th or 9th inning of that ball game, or are we really still in the 4th or 5th inning of this ball game?
Yeah, it's tough to say for sure. I would speculate that, we're looking at the core spenders in this group as the millennials, those being the biggest part of which is 30 to 40. So they're kind of on the cusp of making more and more money as they're rising up the corporate ranks, and so I think you're looking at the core group that's spending here as having more money to spend. So that's a big trend. The older group that we talked about, kind of in retirement now, looking to travel with their families, that's probably going to continue. And I think really looking at the scientific evidence that suggests that this is really a strong driver of happiness. Kind of once you go here, you don't go back. I think there's reason to believe the trend is going to continue.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we're in the 5th inning of this ball game. We're not in the 9th inning of this ball game. I also believe that what you learn from this analysis of it being all about experiences and what the millennials are doing is that it hasn't created a tremendous amount of investable ideas. But what it's done is it's kind of just given us one more reason to believe that this economic cycle continues on a path of slow growth. Because the millennials are just not out spending terrific amounts of money on goods that would drive the economy at a fast pace. This is just another reason why this economy is not going to get excessive and exuberant and bust, and that we're in this economic cycle that's going to continue to kind of ebb and flow and is almost recessionless. It could be we start to develop some strength in housing again, because what you say, how the largest part of the millennials may decide they want to nest a little bit and might want a home, but most of what I think we've learned through our analysis of what millennials are doing just tells us soft consumption continues, and on a lot of kind of uninvestable areas of the economy.
Right.
You know, these restaurants in Laguna Beach that are just, you know, white hot right now are all mom and pop restaurants with all kinds of character that are just not investable.
It kind of by its definition, we're talking about these unique experiences, and it's like, so these are things that kind of haven't really come to market or aren't investable because they're so small and unique. But there are some places where you can get at this.
All right, well, there you go. I think that concludes another episode of Beat the Bogey. Today was all about experiences. We learned a lot, and stay tuned because we'll have another exciting episode coming up next week. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm going for the ride and find myself, I am alive, and I soar. Still I run toward the wind and let the challenge draw me in, 'cause I want more.